The Cloud Foundry Foundation is our sponsor here for our podcast from the Cloud Foundry Summit in Santa Clara, California. Our discussion, the path emerging as organizations move beyond the confusion of disruption and take the journey to transformation. We'll explore the new concepts of multi-cloud and how it relates to open source app development and management at scale. Cloud Foundry gives companies the speed, simplicity, and control they need to develop and deploy applications faster and easier. Learn more about Cloud Foundry at cloudfoundry.org. I'm Alex Williams of the new Stack, and here for the last podcast of the day.
And the best.
Fittingly, yes, and the best with Sam Ramji, CEO of Cloud Foundry.
It's the best because of the Springer Nature team. They're awesome.
I know. I was going to say that too, but it's great to have you here.
Thanks, Alex.
And we actually, we are joined by the Springer Nature team here, and I think it may have been my favorite presentation of the day and perhaps of the conference. And so, hats off to you guys.
Thanks.
And what you presented. It was very fun. We'll include some of the pictures in the blog post. And so introduce yourselves. Why don't you start there?
My name is Daniel. I am head of the platform engineering team. In fact, it's the team that I created within the company. I'm based in the Netherlands, so it was a long trip here.
And what's your Twitter handle?
At Monops. Don't ask me anything about that. It's a long story. It has to do with moaning and people in operations. And I want them to stop moaning. Operation rocks. So
nice.
Don't moan about it.
Yeah, I'm Simon. I'm from Daniel's team, of course. I'm in the ops space. I come from a developer background, but fell in love with operations work because it's so cool.
So
and you have a Twitter also.
I do have a Twitter. It's Carl Simon Johansson. It's a Swedish name. Maybe you can find it, maybe not.
Okay. So tell us your story, and Sam, feel free to add your bit here. And I mean, one of the things I thought you guys presented in a compelling way is that comparison, and you use this fast horses comparison, harkening back to the age of the Model T, right?
Yeah.
Versus Cloud Foundry. Can you guys explain that?
Sure. Do you want to take this one?
I can start. You can take over. I think the fast horses example is, I think what many people were doing back in the day, trying to automate everything with ad hoc automation, configuration management. But up to a certain point, it doesn't scale anymore. So you just create more and more and more and more, and it becomes a big mess. And you get developers who you think they should run configuration management. And before you know it, you have tons of developers, or tons is a little bit exaggerated, but many developers are not writing any code, but they're just pushing changes into the infrastructure. And I think no one realized that the thing that they should focus on is just writing their code, getting it into production, and don't worry about any infrastructural hassle. And that's what Cloud Foundry
Which is more like a car rather than a faster horse.
Yeah,
indeed.
exactly.
But Sam, there's a lot that goes into this. You talk to lots of customers, and one of the things that they brought up was build trust then systems. And I was sitting next to you, and that was one of the things that seemed to resonate when they were giving their presentation.
Yeah, I just thought it was deeply insightful because the Springer Nature team has built out a pretty extraordinary result. And for them to walk through so honestly how they started by building systems and architecting them perfectly and then not having them adopted, just kind of takes us back to what we're doing in the community, what we're doing in open source code. Yeah. You have to start by building trust, and then we can start talking about the technology. And because as technologists, we're so frequently educated only on the technology, and we're not politicians, so we're not taught how to start by building trust. It's a really important lesson, and I think everybody who sat through and experienced the whole talk, that was the most powerful thing at the end. It's like the numbers were amazing, it's so much faster, it was so much cheaper, you could get everything done in a better way, but how do you replicate their success? It'd be if you take that one core lesson. How do you build trust? By listening, by communicating, by delivering incrementally on people's needs, and then you get the credit to go and do one more thing for them. And it's just a series of transactions to build a relationship.
So how do you make that? How do you guys instill that into your own teams, into your own culture?
So speaking for the team itself, I think that's the easiest thing to answer for me. I think the whole road to Cloud Foundry was based on trust. I think you can elaborate on that. Basically, I just got out of their way and trusted them to come up with the best solution.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about your journey, how you got there?
Yeah, sure. So Daniel basically allowed me and my colleague to set aside a lot of time over a period of 2-3 months just to spike different alternatives that were available. It wasn't easy, of course. We didn't have any hardware really to do the spike, so we went into our data center. We found a room with all the hardware that nobody wanted to use. It was going to the dump. So we just racked that, set up our own little nice playground, and Daniel basically allowed us to play for 2-3 months of time and just explore all sorts of new technologies. And
So how did you start that exploration?
how did we start? Yeah, we found the hardware. We went to VMware's website. We downloaded the ESX and the trial for vCenter, and it was all very ghetto. Can I say that? And then we just tried everything. We just Google, and tried every single thing that would come up as a solution to the problems we had. Namely, we couldn't handle the amount of change that was required from our team. So yeah, we tried different path solutions. We tried configuration management in different incarnations.
What different solutions did you try?
So there were Days and Flynn at the time, the new Docker-based ones. They were pretty OpenShift, of course, from Red Hat. There were Cloud Foundry, of course, and the market was pretty new at the time, so there weren't much competition.
Year was this?
Late 2013, maybe.
14, yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it was still a pretty emerging market for an enterprise to be able to in-house a pass. And it was pretty clear from the first couple of weeks that it is a pass we want to allow developers to use.
Why?
Because it just takes so much of the hassle away from the developers, and it takes so much of the hassle away from the operators, and it gives this really nice API. So at first we tried to do the whole DevOps things. We embed operation people in development teams and vice versa. But when you have a really, really large organization and you have lots of developers, but your ops organization is really slim, that is very hard to do. And it's also very hard to hire, we need 40 ops people to be able to achieve this.
So provide us some examples of how it made it easier.
Having a pass, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you said it took away a lot of the hassle away from the developers and the ops people. What are some examples of that?
Yeah, the two of you did a great job describing the existing slow horses model and the faster horses model. I kind of came away with it almost with a picture in my head of this is a VM vending machine.
Yeah.
So now I've vended you a VM, and now I have to connect it, and I still have to do all the things, the
All
network
stuff.
routes, the
Yeah.
DNS. So
That's
maybe
no
some of those
automation.
details to get a sense of each individual unit. Once you're vended that VM, what do you have to do next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's basically the skit that we did every time a new project emerged. They had to go through the same kind of process to get started. Like the inception period of the project was weeks. They had to request the machines, and then once they had them, they had to write the configuration management. Often it was broken. So they had to really set up infrastructure. They were doing infrastructural work. And I think a lot of people refer to that as DevOps. I think it's inefficiency, to be honest. So yeah, that's I think the horror. And now what the benefits are, none of that is there anymore. I think we did a trade-off by removing ourselves from the development teams, create a platform engineering team. You could say, you create a silo. We deliberately took a step back and decided to create a platform that would take care of all of this mess, so that the developers could just write code, push it to a repo, and it gets picked up from there and get pushed into development, QA, production, whatever, in the same way. Repeatable, quick, immediate feedback.
You almost forced yourself into almost a cloud model where you're communicating with your internal developers almost via an API.
Yeah,
So
basically,
you had to force yourself to solve all those problems in an automated way. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that had downsides as well.
Oh, for sure.
course,
It's
of
hard.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of
Not
the
easy.
downsides to it.
The
'cause-
crickets. Once we were done, basically,
Yeah.
there was nothing. Basically, we knew that it was what they wanted because we listened, but they weren't using it, right? They weren't deploying anything. So we're kind of huh? It's weird.
Yeah, also I guess some sites that come into this is that it is a very opinionated platform. There's no way around that, the Cloud Foundry. You follow the 12-factor app, and it's getting more and more how should we put it, acceptable to differences in opinions of how to develop software.
Yeah, that's a lot of the work that we've tried to put in over the last 12 months or so. A little under a year ago, the Open Container Initiative was launched at the Linux Foundation. And it was something that many companies were interested in, many projects were interested in. Cloud Foundry was one of the most interested, because getting to a common container spec and coming to a common image format meant that we could start to look at Cloud Foundry as being a platform for containers or code. So now push code, that's very efficient.
Yeah.
But if you have a container you really want, we've gotten to the point where you can bring your own container.
Yep.
So that's kind of a big achievement. We had to start out opinionated, but now we're also adding more liberalism.
Yeah. I think the opinionated part is actually also good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It's the brilliance, really. It's,
you create constraints, but by having these constraints, actually become more flexible, which is kind of weird.
yeah.
But it does enable you to be much more flexible on the underlying layers.
I've had conversations with people about the comparisons with using collaboration versus using an API, and the answer often seems to be, well, we can collaborate better, right? We can make ourselves a team and collaborate, and I've talked to technologists and say, actually, that's really not what you want to do. You just want to automate all those interactions and make it the API help have the API do the hard work for you, so you don't have to communicate unnecessarily.
Yeah.
You can just basically use the API to do that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, you have this API, so you stop the collaboration, but by doing so, you enable yourself to have more time to actually collaborate in all things that matters.
You remove a lot of noise, basically.
Yeah.
There's a sad joke I heard once about a man's career. He was in his mid-30s and he was applying for a new job, and they said, "What have you done?" He says, "Well, I have 12 years of experience as a shoe salesman." Then the hiring manager said, "I'm sorry, what you have is 6 months of experience as a shoe salesman 24 times." So it's like, don't keep collaborating for collaboration's sake on stuff that's repeatable, that's automatable. And by saving yourself and automating, right, you got 23 more cycles that you could not be selling shoes. You can go do something else.
Right.
And we have more collaboration than ever, by the way. I mean, we talk to the developers. We have direct communication, obviously, but on different subjects.
Yeah.
But that brings up another matter, though, and and Cloud Foundry is a platform for developing microservices, right? So you can. But one of the things that I'm hearing people complain about with microservices is now the organizational complexity that comes with that.
Yeah.
Right now, there was someone from Uber who I was talking to who said they are starting to think how they're going to actually develop software to manage the organization now around the microservices. Do you guys have
I'll just make one point from their presentation. I liked it so much I took a picture of almost every slide. So the problem's always going to shift, but the first problem they were solving was they had big monoliths.
Yeah.
They had one deploy a week, lots of local optimizations, and snowflakes. Every single server was a special snowflake.
Yeah.
So you don't have higher order problems. You're not high enough on Maslow's hierarchy at that point of needs. You're still doing food, water, and shelter when you're there.
Right.
And by the time they got done, they were launching 1,400, currently doing 1,400 small apps, 4,000 deploys a week.
Right.
Global standards across the entire organization, and it's grassroots because it's caught on at the developer level. So complexity will now move because they've freed it up. So I'd love to hear where the complexity's gone.
Yeah.
You go. You had something.
One big hurdle is CI and CD. Like, how do you orchestrate such a large system? Because at the end of the day, all these applications are somehow intertwined in each other. So that's a big effort, and we have a team just dedicated to CI and continuous delivery.
Yeah. So what are you doing to alleviate the problem right now?
Oh, there's a lot of things.
Or what are you using? What tools are you using right now?
So currently we are using GoCD from ThoughtWorks. It used to be a manual click and click process basically. Now we auto-generate CI configuration from the Git repository itself. So all the details of your source and the deployment lies in one repository. They do a lot of CDCs and that kind of stuff, which I don't really understand because I'm more into operations at this point in time. And I guess we starting now to model kind of visualize business logic or business components over the company. I'm sure we can build really cool stuff on top of this.
We are also looking at Concourse for the deployment of CF itself, obviously. To have some continuous deployment of the platform. I would say another big challenge is the fact that the microservices approach dramatically increases the amount of network traffic you will see.
Right.
And that is something that I think has to be taken into account for everyone who's going in this direction. If you have one online platform, you used to have like maybe 10 requests for one user click, and now that's hundreds. And yeah, that's a challenge. So far, I think we're working with the problem, but this could explode, obviously.
These must be questions you guys are scratching your heads about. I mean, the types of kind of questions I imagine must come up when you guys are talking about the architecture and how it's developed over time.
Yeah, it's wonderful pressure, right? I've been in distributed systems for a long time, in enterprise for about the same. What I've learned over time is you want to end up with a diamond, and a diamond only comes from having coal and applying a lot of pressure in useful ways, and then it's hardened. It's always wrong at first, and you just learn where it's going to break and where the pressure comes. So this exact example is something we're dealing with right now inside the architecture of Cloud Foundry. The way that container-to-container calls are done through the router. We have total isolation between containers, and there's no way to do a trusted connection from one container to another. So in order to preserve security and isolation and follow all the Cloud Foundry rules, a container has to go all the way back out of the orchestration engine into the router, and then all the way back to another container. So we call this the two-hop problem. So worst case, you could end up running a container on one core, calling a router, maybe sitting on another core or another CPU in the same machine, and then coming all the way back, or maybe a router on another machine, increasing the network traffic, which is poor, just to talk to container B. So there's a proposal that we're working through right now to do trusted container-to-container networking, so that you can have container A call container B directly. The challenge is preserving the level of auditability, security, and dealing with the fact that even in an environment like Springer Nature, you have some untrusted guests. You don't want to trust every container that you've been handed or every code sample that gets generated in a container equally. Some are less equal than others, and you need to be more thoughtful. So it's a delicate balance, but we're working through that. I think we'll have that cracked in probably the next 3 to 6 months.
That's awesome.
So how are you guys dealing with it now?
That's an interesting question.
Bigger boxes.
Bigger
Cisco.
Scaling. I mean, it's not a solution, obviously, but it's a good thing to know that it scales so well, so we can still cope with it. It's just a matter of scaling out.
It's a very interesting point that it scales so well, because we have had virtually zero problems with Cloud Foundry as a system. We've had problems, but it always turned out to be either the F5 or the NetApps or the hypervisor is too unpowerful. We haven't been able to break Cloud Foundry. No. We've tried really hard.
That's awesome. That's probably the proudest moment you can have as a software person is when people try to break it and it won't break. That's pretty great.
One of the proudest moments we had was recently. We had a big outage, and we actually enjoyed the outage. So in one of the DCs, a whole rack failed, and everything was gone. I have to say, all the online platforms were actually down. I have to admit that. But as soon as the outage by the external factor was resolved, like the power was restored and everything came up, we just sat there, watched our monitors, and it all worked again. Just a few minutes later, Bosch healed everything, and all the most important online platforms were just online, no work needed from us.
You could see the graph of the applications just being virtually zero up to 1400s in a matter of a minute or so. It's a poof.
And we of course discovered some weaknesses in the fact that it shouldn't have gone down at all, maybe. But I mean, these are the moments when there's still room for improvement, but also very big achievements. And we could focus on the communication about the outage, and we didn't have to fix anything.
Is there some kind of Chaos Monkey equivalent in Cloud Foundry at all?
What we do is basically statistical testing. So we do very sophisticated modeling of all the ways that the orchestrator could be hit. And it's hammered over and over and over against all these different patterns. You should do an interview with Ansi Fukuri. I think the statistical methods for doing tests of distributed systems that have been developed for Diego are world class. I'm not aware of any other technology, open source or proprietary, going through anything like it. I think that alone is a really interesting spin-off of figuring out how do you test Diego, which is now being tested to run 250,000 containers. It's the highest scaling orchestrator on the planet, and then we're going to keep pushing it higher. So yes, there's something like Chaos Monkey. Interestingly, Swisscom, and this is one of the great things about being part of a community, there's so much innovation happening all the time. All you have to do is go and hunt it down, right? Go and you bring your telescope, your magnifying glass. Swisscom, because they're Swiss, they don't have the Chaos Monkey, they have Chaos Heidi. So Chaos Heidi is a new project that's in the community for going around and randomly blowing up parts of your Cloud Foundry. And this is where talking pales in comparison to experiencing the technology. No matter how good or bad you are at technology, you can do the Bosch demo. Maria Schaldabina did an amazing demo that you can go and find. Just look for the Bosch demo, and maybe we'll post a link. Getting on the tutorial. It'll take you an hour. You'll build Bosch. You'll launch Cloud Foundry. You'll launch a simple app, and then you'll try to kill the apps and take it down. And you'll end up fighting with Bosch, trying to kill things faster than Bosch will bring it up. It's really amazing when you wrestle with the Resurrector and you think, wow, this thing has got some resiliency.
That's cool.
So why do you guys like Bosch so much? You guys talked about it in your presentation.
Oh, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I wish I could explain that in simple terms. Having dealt with all sorts of different cloud technologies, configuration management, and problems that arise from dealing with this kind of stuff, and then just neatly package all the good practices into one tool that kind of automates away your whole job and your whole existence in a really nicely packaged thing. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's hard to explain, but it's just release engineering made right.
I guess maybe another question is, you were saying that when you bring on new developers, they're talking Docker, and then they start using Bosch, and then what?
So it's not necessarily Bosch they start to use. They start to use Cloud Foundry. So
right.
We have a large stream of developers onboarding in the company all the time, and leaving, coming, going. It's a big company. And they always say, like, I used Docker in my previous company. I love Docker. Docker is cool. And we have to be like, okay, yeah, Docker is cool, but try Cloud Foundry. And 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, why didn't I know Cloud Foundry before? This is so great. So
what did they say about Bosch then?
Nothing, because Bosch is for me, not the
Bosch
developers.
is for you.
Exactly.
Right.
Maybe the analogy you can make about Bosch is that there's a lot of really good scripting systems that have been built in open source in the last 10, 15 years. Some good friends of mine and people who are part of the Cloud Foundry community, like Andrew Schaefer, Luke Knies, right, Build Puppet. You know all those folks. And scripting was better than going and doing things at the command line, but it's still a little bit like being the fire department. You're going to go and fight fires all the time. What's better than the fire department is automated water sprinklers fed by municipal water supplies and like strobe lights that go off when things are happening. You know something happened, but there's no fire. Why? The smoke was detected. The sprinkler doused it. Like, that's what I think Simon's pointing back to when he says an automated platform. It's very hard to understand unless you've actually tried the technology. So this is like what they say, writing about music is like dancing about architecture.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're doing with this complex system.
Bosch was launched when out of VMware when Cloud Foundry originated there.
It's part of Cloud Foundry. It's intellectual property owned by the Cloud Foundry Foundation on behalf of everybody. And it's really the platform. So in a way, as Office is to Windows, Cloud Foundry is to Bosch. Bosch is the platform that we use to deploy and manage Cloud
Does it have a
Foundry
is it a configuration management environment?
No. Now you're getting it.
I don't want to tread it.
I got another maybe an example of
But
Bosch.
some people say, I've heard, I don't know if it was Bosch talked about kind of not an equivalent, but there may be a cousin or a distant relative of Papa and Chef, or no?
I would say it's a different beast.
Different beast
Completely,
entirely.
yeah.
It of course contains some form of, you need to configure stuff, so Bosch helps you configure stuff, but it's so much more.
So actually, what I think is very, very cool is the security talk. And we experience that every time we upgrade Cloud Foundry, which we do very often because we keep track on the latest release. Every time we upgrade, we destroy the entire environment, and we patch actually our entire infrastructure. So we're always up to date with the latest security patches, something that's simply not possible with configuration. Yeah, it is possible, but it's really, really hard. especially in a very heterogeneous environment where people use very different stuff. You don't know what will happen if you apply a patch, if this dependency will break, or if this special software will still work. And with Bosch, we actually destroy everything and we rebuild it with the latest version. And we did that with Shell Shock, Heartbleed.
We
just
hear this
blow
all the
away
time.
the entire environment, and we rebuild it from scratch with all the patches. We don't even have to check it. It's just.
And that's when having 3,000 requests per second going into 1,400 apps. We don't really care about how many requests or how many app instances there is. It's just as nuances. We just destroy and create, and nothing happens to the applications.
The difference between Bosch and scripting is in scripting, you're automating things that the people know how to do, and you're still going to have to apply the scripts. There's a lot of human in the loop. Whereas Bosch is designed to know things. Bosch knows things about your environment. Bosch knows how to apply an update. If you want to update Mongo or MySQL, Bosch knows how to do that underneath your applications. It understands application lifecycle. It knows where your applications are deployed, and it knows how to patch the operating system. One of the great things that Daniel and Simon talked about was, we should just patch the whole stack. Right? Why do you have to have all sorts of special secrets about which different pieces you patch? Bosch knows how to take the whole root file system, the stem cell, secure the whole thing. You've already hardened it, and now you deploy it across your whole farm. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
And you made a really cool point about putting a Bosch recreate, which is a command for recreating a whole environment in a cron job. So basically, why not every 24 hours just blow away your entire stack and redeploy it? Why not?
Yeah.
We can do it. Why not?
So what's next for you guys with Cloud Foundry?
Diego,
yeah.
We're not running Diego in live. We're running it in test, and we're deploying it to dev.
It's going to make things way easier for you.
Yeah. Why have you waited on Diego?
Good question. I think so far we haven't had a really good, let's say, problem to solve or a use case to say, okay, we really need Diego, so we're going to prioritize it. We've been working on hardening our system, making it more stable.
So what are the
now,
And building services around Cloud Foundry to make the developers' lives easier.
So what are the problems now that make Diego viable?
I think there's some stuff. Well, you know more about this than me, but the routing stuff seems really interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, the ability to run containers. I'm not sure if we're going to do that from day zero, but it's really nice to have. The scheduling is better, right? Between so the instances are better spread out over the runners.
The scalability is much higher.
Yeah, there are certainly some things now that we say we really want to be on Diego.
The funny thing about Diego is that the past version, DEAs, there's nothing broken.
No.
Yeah.
It's very stable, right? IBM runs DEAs in Bluemix, and they've got 1 million users running Cloud Foundry using the DEAs. Yeah. So it's not broken.
No.
But we are aggressive, restless people, and we want it to be more awesome. So the Diego model, one of the things that we do, because it's blue-green deployments, enterprise environments, zero downtime requirements, is we have a comprehensive operator upgrade guide, and we say, you should start by defaulting nothing to Diego, then default to few things, retarget them, and then once you've gotten through to 2 to 3 months where you're satisfied that you've watched these things happen, then you can set the new version to default to Diego. And by the way, applications deployed to the DEAs will still run on the exact same Cloud Foundry. So we enable a hybrid mode because sometimes you don't want to take down a workload or change anything. We're not about change for change's sake. We're about making things better and keeping you running. It's a very pragmatic community, the Cloud Foundry folks.
Well, thank you guys very much for taking the time to
Sure.
talk with us. And Sam, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
It's been a great event.
If you're listening to this, you'd be insane not to watch the video of Simon and Daniel presenting the best keynote that I've seen in the last 12 months.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Yeah,
Good luck
thank
to you guys.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
The Cloud Foundry Foundation is our sponsor here for our podcast from the Cloud Foundry Summit in Santa Clara, California. Our discussion, the path emerging as organizations move beyond the confusion of disruption and take the journey to transformation. We'll explore the new concepts of multi-cloud and how it relates to open source app development and management at scale. Cloud Foundry gives companies the speed, simplicity, and control they need to develop and deploy applications faster and easier. Learn more about Cloud Foundry at cloudfoundry.org.